Let's use Postman and try a few things out. So we know we've got our database. They all have IDs, so that's our unique way of referencing that information. So within Postman, if, for instance, we want to return back the post with ID 3, let me show you how you can do that. So all we need to do is say ID 3. So it's as easy as that, and that will return back, and it should be a GET request. So that will return back that third one. We can do ID 3 as well within the parameters. So key value ID 3, send. So that will return that one. We can update this to 4, and that's returning back 4. If we want 5, we can update 5. So we can see that it passed it within that URL, or we could pass it as a value. So let's go ahead and we're just going to simply copy this out and go over to here, open up this page a little bit bigger so we've got some more room to play with. And within build page, the format that we want to use is we want to request this information. So we want to get this information. So this is the URL that we want to send. And we're going to do the get make, but we also want to return back that information and we want to output it. So we want to make some type of use for that information that we're outputting. So because it's running asynchronously, we need to add this within our page. So there's a number of different ways that we can do this. We can just do it without this function. So we can do that whole XHR object request in here. So let's do that because this is going to be unique that we're only using for the loading and the building of the page. So we already increased that current ID value. So we know that this current ID value is going to be this one. So the URL that we're getting is going to be this. So just quote around that and plus the current ID. So we can have a dynamic value coming in there. So once it finishes loading, you can get rid of this commented value. So once it finishes loading, then what do we want to do with it? And what we want to do is we want to output it into the inner HTML. And we also want to do maybe a little bit more. So we want to make this dynamic, that we have the ability to actually loop through those responses and do something interesting with that. So we're not ready to output it quite yet. Let's do a loop through the object. So we'll do a for loop, variable key. So we're grabbing out the key in the object. So the object is going to be this one here. We can assign a variable to it. So my object, so this is just whatever that temporary response information is. And we're going to loop through there. And for now, let's do a console log of those key values so that we can make sure that we are actually picking them all up. And we're going to comment this one out as well. So we want to make sure that we are picking out the key and also the my object. And we should be able to grab the value by using the key. So let's try this out. So we see that it's coming back, the key is 0, and then the my object is all of this. So basically what that means is, remember, whenever we're logging this out, so let's console log this out. So this is the my object. So this is the one that we're creating. And if you take a look at it, we see that this is within an array format, so that it's the first item there that we want to look at. So it's returning it back within an array format. So it's always important to take a look at whenever you're returning back that information. If you want to make use for it, that's what we've got to give it an index that we're looking at from the array. So now this time we see that we're getting first and we're getting all of that information. So now it's working and we're returning back the information in the console and we're ready to update our inner HTML with that. So let's grab this value here and we're going to simply add to the inner HTML. Now that we've got the key, we've got the object value, we can really easily list this out. So let's do B, so bold out the whatever the key is. And this makes it a whole lot more flexible as well when we're outputting it on our page. So if, for instance, we've got different keys, different values. It's going to have a lot more flexibility built in. And usually whenever we're designing, we want to try to keep as much flexibility as possible. So sometimes it does take a little bit of time, but once you've got the structure laid out, then you're good to go to output it within that content. So also wanted to add in a line break. So let's try this out. So we click next, 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 next. So you see over here that we're able to work with whatever parameters we've got available to us. And we're able to iterate through all of that JSON data until we get to the end. And we should also have something there that if we do get to the end, if we don't have an ID, if it's not being returned, then we should disable that next as well. So that's something that also to keep in mind as we build this application out. So right now, everything is working. Next, we want to be able to send some data, so to create new posts. And we also want to be able to search the posts and add comments to the posts. So all of that exciting stuff is still to come. So go ahead now and try this out for yourself. Add it into your own application so that you can loop through the data and go next and previous so you can get through all of the comments.